Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday. Welcome to day 4 of the Boys Town Pediatrics Summer Newborn Expo. My name is Gabby, and I'm joined here today with Dr. Danielle Empson. Dr. Empson, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Gabby?
Great. So great to have you. We're going to be talking about newborn travel. So, if you recently had a baby and you have a summer trip planned before the school year, or if you're expecting and you're going to take a trip eventually. So, it's good to know these newborn travel tips, kind of a tongue twister. So, before we get into our discussion questions here, I want to remind everyone that we are doing live giveaways during this video. So, if you want to win a free to baby care bundle as well as some receiving blankets from Bye Bye Baby, please make sure to like this video and leave a comment below and you'll be entered to win. Okay, so the first question is, what should I consider when deciding to fly with a newborn versus drive?
So, great question. I feel like, first of all, I want to preface this by I have a toddler at home and I've traveled by air and by car with him. So, I feel a little bit seasoned on this topic.
Right.
But I feel when we're talking about going via car or airplane, I think distance is probably one of the biggest factors. And so, depending on how far you're going to go or if you can get there by car, would be, kind of a big decision. And then probably just comfort. I think it's definitely up to the family to, see what is they're most comfortable with. If you're going by car with a young child, you're going to have to stop frequently,
Mhm.
but you'll probably come in less contact with people. And obviously, with a pandemic going on, that is probably beneficial. Um, but if you're going by airplane, you may get there more quickly. You're able to kind of be right there with your toddler, not having them necessarily strapped into a car seat all the time. So, those are kind of the big factors.
Yeah. So, if we plan on flying, what are some necessities that parents should pack for the new baby?
Yes. So you always want to have your diaper bag with you with all the essentials inside. Definitely having spare change of clothes. I have learned that the hard way. And maybe even a spare change of clothes for the parents because when I last flew with my toddler, he peed through his diaper and I was all wet. He had great dry, clean clothes. I did not because I made the mistake of not preparing for myself.
Yeah.
But in your diaper bag, you want to make sure that you have your extra clothes, diapers, wipes, any feeding supplies that you may need. If you're bottle feeding and formula feeding, then you'd want to have those things with you. A good changing pad. A lot of people like to have sanitizing wipes with them. Comfy clothes, layers, maybe a blanket or a cover up if you're nursing. And then I always just keep my wallet and my keys and my ID in the diaper bag so that I don't have to carry something else for myself. Chapstick for myself is always a necessity. I feel like I have chapstick in my purse, my work
Yeah.
bag, the diaper bag, everywhere. And then maybe just a copy of a birth certificate, or if the baby has a passport, definitely bringing that with you, just so that if there were any identification purposes needed, you'd have that.
Mm-hmm. I see a couple comments coming through. Just want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Dr. Empson related to this topic, go ahead and leave it in the comments. We'll answer all questions here at the end. Okay, so the next one is, does flying hurt my newborn's ears? And if so, how can I help them?
Yes. So probably similar to like an adult flying, that you can have the ear popping with the change in pressure. And so there probably is that sensation or discomfort with ears while flying. And so the way that you could help them is feeding them during takeoff and landing or giving them a pacifier. So that sucking can help kind of relieve some of that ear pressure. And whether you want to, like I said, bottle feed or breastfeed during takeoff and landing, that often tends to be most helpful. And then just being, having your baby trying to soothe them as best you can during those times too. Some questions come up too about like the noise on an airplane. A lot of times the womb is very noisy for young babies. And so they can tolerate that noise very well. And probably that white noise may actually be helpful to sort of put them to sleep. But some people will buy those noise canceling headphones for little kiddos too, if they're anxious about that.
Yeah. What advice do you have for soothing a newborn on a flight? We have a comment below saying flying with an infant seems really hard. So, what tips do you have for kind of soothing and trying to not be that parent who can't get their baby to stop crying, even though it's totally okay if you are?
It is. Yes, I have been that parent,
Yeah,
and I find that the parents of the child are the ones who are probably most stressed.
totally.
As you may or may not know, your baby's cry is kind of tuned into your ears, but a lot of people are able to sort of tune that out when it's not their own child. So that's good news.
Yeah.
Having lots of patience for yourself and your child. And then the soothing things like we talked about, feeding your baby again during takeoff and landing, having different comfort objects for them, kind of new things maybe that they haven't seen before, a new toy or a new blanket. And then just kind of the typical newborn soothing things, shushing, a sound machine, or like, again, the planes are kind of loud anyway, so that can be helpful. Um, a pacifier, and getting up and walking around if you can is helpful. And then if you have like a carrier to wear your baby really close to you and snugly, that can be helpful as well.
Yes. The next question is, what tips do you have for flying with a stroller or a carrier?
Yes. So I always say that take the stroller with you through security, especially if you have layovers in between or you got to the airport early because you have a child and you want to make sure that you make your flight. But it's really nice to be able to contain them a little bit in the stroller rather than trying to figure out what to do with the child holding them, and holding all your other gear and things can be a little bit tricky. So bringing the stroller, you can buy big, huge stroller bags on like Amazon or something like that to put the stroller into, to gate check it, and then you'll have it right when you get off the plane too, which is super helpful. That's what we've always done. They have weight limits on strollers, but most of your kind of standard strollers or travel strollers work just fine.
Awesome. So the next few questions are more about these road trips. So if you're driving, these are great to tune into. So if we are driving with baby, what are some good necessities to pack?
Yes. So, same thing goes with that diaper bag. You want to have that easily accessible, all the things that you can grab, extra wipes, disposable changing pads if you need to go into a public restroom to change your child, again, sanitizing wipes and things like that. I have a few things here that we've found super helpful. So, the baby mirror. So, babies, when they're in their car seat, they face the back window for the first 2 years of life. So having a mirror on the back seat so that you can see them through their rear view mirror is very helpful to see if your baby's awake, struggling, sleeping, any of those things. I always bring a sound machine in the car when we go on long trips as well, because when it's nap time, we just try to simulate the same environment as home. And so we'll turn on the sound machine, we'll kind of pull the shade over the car seat or put a little blanket over it to make it a little bit darker, and that can help baby kind of fall asleep. Rattles, toys, that sort of thing. So little infants, things that they can grab on, make noise with, can be helpful. If they like books, that can be helpful too. Sometimes I've done this, crawling into the back seat to sit next to my child rather than the two adults being in the front seat and the baby being alone in the back seat, and they can't see you, can't see what's going on. So sitting in the back seat and then you're a little bit more face to face with them can be really helpful if they're getting a little bit fussy. Sunshades for the window can be super helpful too, just to help kind of make sure that sun is not getting into your child's eyes. And then if you're a nursing mom, bringing a breast pump with you. So the first road trip we took with my child, I think he was about 6 months old, and he, for whatever reason, did not want to nurse when it was our time to go to the rest stop and take a break. And I
Yeah.
thought he was hungry and he did not want to nurse. And so I pumped in the car and we ended up giving him a bottle later on, and that worked well. But just always having kind of backup options in case things don't go exactly as planned, because that often is the case with those road trips. And then, depending on the time of year, just making sure you have your safety gear in the vehicle with you, extra blankets if it's cold outside and you get stranded for whatever reason. And then again, lots of patience and grace, because it is definitely an experience for everybody.
Yes, for sure. Well, you just mentioned this briefly, but my next question was going to actually be about breastfeeding. So, if moms are kind of stressed about navigating breastfeeding while on a long road trip, how can they make that journey easier?
Yeah, so just preparing ahead of time to have lots of frequent stops. Newborn babies want to feed every half an hour to every couple hours. And so being ready if your baby's showing feeding cues, kind of pull over and make sure that you're in a safe spot to get the baby out and nurse the baby as you kind of normally would. You don't ever really want to feed a baby while they're in their car seat. And so just being mindful of that and then having kind of that backup plan if the baby doesn't want to feed and maybe breasts are feeling a little bit engorged and you need to pump, then having a pump with you can be helpful. They have handheld breast pumps and then obviously electric pumps. Making sure as a mom that you're staying really nourished and hydrated too throughout the drive because sometimes we'll pick up snacks and
Yeah.
crummy things like that on the road, which I am definitely guilty of that. But making sure that you're drinking lots of water can help. And then, yeah, preparing to stop pretty much every 2 hours or so. We don't love when babies are in the car seat for super long stretches of time. So we want to make sure to give them a break to stretch out and move around a little bit.
Yeah. I love what you said about the hydration because I feel like sometimes on road trips we like purposely drink less water because we don't want to stop. But you're going to
Yep.
be stopping anyway for baby, so you might as well, get your bathroom break in too. So
Yes,
stay
for
hydrated.
sure.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is what if my baby gets car sick?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question because in these really little babies, we don't want to medicate really for car sickness or the possibility of car sickness. So again, a little bit of fresh air, the frequent stops, being prepared to take breaks, lots of burp cloths or towels or whatever you need, changes of clothes if your baby is prone to spitting up can be helpful to kind of prepare for that. And yeah, if your baby gets car sick, kind of help them through it, take a little break, change their clothes, and get back to it.
Yeah. So we have a few more questions here for Dr. Empson. So I want to remind everyone watching live that if you want to win our giveaway today, please like this video and leave a comment below. Comment any questions you have related to this topic and we'll get them answered. So should I be changing my baby or feeding, whatever they need, in the car, over a gas station, bathroom to avoid germs, or where would you recommend doing that?
Another great question, and I feel that's really up to parents' comfort. A lot of diaper bags come with changing pads like built into them. I don't like to use those in public places, but they also make disposable changing pads that you would just put down on like a diaper changing station and then you can toss it and throw it away. That always makes me feel a little bit comfortable if you do have to change your baby in a public spot. I have definitely changed my baby in the back seat of the car, in the trunk of the car, in the front seat of the car, whatever we needed to do. If a bathroom was already occupied or something like that, that may be the case as well. But I think, again, that's kind of up to parent preference, just making sure washing your hands and doing it as hygienically as possible is fine.
Great. So, when traveling with multiple kids, my older ones tend to act out because they're jealous that I have to spend so much time on the road tending to new baby. What advice do you have for keeping the peace?
I imagine that that is probably a common thing that parents will find with a newborn at home and traveling in the car and all sorts of areas. But I think just making things fun for the older kids too. I've had friends who have had like little gifts to open every hour on the hour or a little game or activity that they do on the hour. And then that's something for the kids to look forward to, helps them pass the time. And obviously having some of that one-on-one time or asking the child specific questions and things like that. And then just preparation ahead of time and kind of telling them, all right, this might be a little bit tricky or stressful for all of us. We're all going to help and chip in with baby and things like that. So I think that can all be super helpful. And again, you never know exactly how kids are going to act on a road trip, but hopefully those little tips will help a little bit.
Yes. The last question is: does my newborn need to wear sunscreen in the car?
So another great question, and a lot of times we don't recommend sunscreen for babies under 6 months old unless absolutely necessary. And so best way to help prevent, because the sun rays can go through glass, those damaging UV rays can go through glass. So using those sunshades on the window, if you have like SPF protective clothing for your child, again dressing them in layers. Hopefully your car can be air conditioned to an appropriate temperature where layers would be appropriate to sort of cover the baby's skin as much as you can. Is kind of the best way. And then if you absolutely do need to use sunscreen, then you could do that kind of on the exposed areas. But again, we try to limit sunscreen in those babies less than 6 months old just because their skin is so fresh and new.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get now into the questions in the comment section. So if you have a question, comment it now so you can get it answered. The first one is it best to just book a seat on a plane and keep baby in a car seat or to take baby on your lap on the plane?
Another great question. So I feel if you can afford to have another seat, it is definitely probably more helpful, whether the baby's in a car seat or not. Just having a little bit of that extra space can be helpful. We have always traveled with our child on our lap, and we did that most recently when he was 16 months old, and that was really tough when we had two seats next to each other and then someone was in the third seat, and when she went up to use the restroom, I was like, why didn't we get three seats, because
Right.
this is
You
much
have to
more
move
glorious.
everyone. Yeah.
Yes. So I think, I mean, if you have the possibility to have an extra seat, an extra room, that's definitely beneficial. But if not, I mean, having a lap child, the benefit of that, when kids are under two, they fly free. So
Right.
whatever preference you have, I think is okay.
Great. The next one is this is not plane related, but it is outdoorsy. Great question, by the way. Are bug bites any worse for infants than others? And maybe with that, can you put bug spray on babies?
So again, I don't recommend bug spray for kids less than 6 months old. And then if you do use bug spray, a little bit bug spray with a little bit of DEET, because that helps prevent the mosquitoes and everything, can be helpful. And then just washing it off at the end of the night. I don't know particularly if like the younger babies are more prone to bug bites, but I do know that certain people have more harsh reactions to bug bites than other people. And sometimes, for whatever reason, mosquitoes like certain people better than others. So that would be kind of the only thing with that. But bug spray in kids older than 6 months is definitely okay.
Okay, the next one is at what age would you recommend to wait for to take a baby on an international flight? This user says that her husband's family lives in Brazil.
Okay. Another great question. So, when you're traveling to foreign countries, you want to look at risk for certain diseases. Different countries have risks of different diseases, and you may need different vaccines. And so, a lot of times, for a vaccine to work, it can take 2 to 6 weeks to start working if that is needed. And so, checking if you're able to get that vaccine for your child, and then how long it would take to get the immunity to that, would be kind of depending on the time frame. I tell most families that you want to wait until babies are about 2 months old before traveling, going on major flights, being around a lot of people, just because at 2 months is when they can get their first big set of vaccines and help with some immunity. And then in that first month, babies are really at risk for infections as well. And so if babies have a fever in the less than 1 month range, that could be a sign of illness. They need to really be evaluated right away, and oftentimes hospitalized just because they are so young. So
Yeah.
to prevent that exposure, we kind of just say limiting contact. So I would say waiting till at least 2 months is probably best for the baby to kind of develop some of that immunity, and then looking at what vaccines they need. Can they get it at their age? How long does it take to kick in? And maybe waiting until those take effect before traveling internationally.
Awesome. If you take your child outside for a long time, why not use sunscreen? So I think she's referencing the 6 months and under, how we don't recommend sunscreen use for babies.
Yep. So really, depending on kind of how warm it is outside and things like that, sometimes it's just even too hot for a baby to be outside for that long, especially if we're trying to protect their skin. We say cover their skin, either keep them in shade under an umbrella, long sleeves or long pants or something like that. And then if they're in long sleeves and long pants, they may get a little too hot. So that's part of the reason I mean, the sunscreen can be absorbed into the skin. And so that's why we kind of wait until 6 months when that skin is a little bit tougher. But if absolutely necessary, there's no way to cover your child from the sun, then sunscreen is okay because the risk of sunburn is higher, if that makes sense. Um, so, yeah, I think we just don't want to slather sunscreen on all the time in those less than 6 months old unless absolutely necessary. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
Yeah. And what are maybe some alternatives? I know a lot of people use those big, sun hats and umbrellas. Would you recommend finding those instead?
Yes, definitely. Just a way to kind of cover the skin. And then the SPF clothing is that used to be, I feel, kind of more for adults and things like that, but they make that for all age groups now, which is super helpful and pretty breathable fabric too.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, great. This has been so, so helpful, especially for everyone who is about due and is going to take a summer trip. So thank you so much, Dr. Empson. Where can
Yeah.
people find you if they want to request a meet and greet? What clinics are you at?
Perfect. Yes, I'd be happy to meet you all, and congratulations to all the new parents or soon to be parents. I am at the 168th and Maple location, our newest Boys Town location. It's on the northeast corner of 168th and Maple. I'd be very happy to meet you.
Awesome. And we do have our meet and greet form linked above here, and I'll also put it in the comment section if you want to meet Dr. Empson or any of our other wonderful Boys Town pediatricians. So, tomorrow we are going to be live again for our last day of the expo, and that's going to be with Dr. Sarah Orr. We're talking about how to prepare to go back to work after baby. So, choosing daycare, all the necessities, and more. So, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Bye. Take care.